Katie, all set?
Yes, sir.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. My name is Peter Basserman, Chairman of the Branford Inland Wetland Commission. It is now 7 o'clock on October 24th, 2024. This is a regular meeting of the Inland Wetland Commission. It's being conducted utilizing the Zoom platform in accordance with Public Act 22-3. BCTV is recording this evening, so please make sure your face is visible, especially when speaking. The agenda for tonight was filed on October 22nd. That replaces the draft agenda of October 18th. The material for tonight's meeting, including that agenda, is included on the town's website. The Dropbox for the town Branford meeting materials contain information that we'll be discussing this evening. The address for that Dropbox is also included in the town's website. Any changes or modifications to the agenda this evening, Jamie?
No.
Okay. I'll now do a roll call. Commissioner Goklowski?
Commissioner Goklowski, present.
Commissioner Amrad?
Commissioner Ormrod, present.
Commissioner Boda?
Commissioner Boda, present.
Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, present.
And I think that's everybody. Also, we have Inland Wetland Director Jamie Frederick
Present.
and Inland Wetland Associate Katie Blanchett.
Present.
Okay, all commissioners are seated for this evening's meeting. We have a quorum, so we can proceed. Just a reminder for the commission, if scheduling issues come up this evening, we only have one meeting in November, and that includes a public hearing. So we may want to take that into consideration as items comes up this evening on the. First up, we have the minute of approval from our October 10th meeting, mailed out to the commissioners and again in the Dropbox. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Let me try that again. Any motion to approve the minutes of October 10th of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Commissioner Basterman, I was muted. I put a motion forward to accept the minutes that were put forth for the October 10th, 2024 meeting.
Hopefully there's a second out there.
This is Commissioner Begeman. I'll second.
Any modifications? Now that we have a motion. All right. All in favor of accepting the minutes of October 10th indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, good.
Aye.
Item 2 on our agenda, applications for review, inland wetland 240902. That item is tabled until our public hearing on November 14th. Inland wetland 240903, 5 Pin Oak Drive, which encompasses the construction of a 20,000 square foot building with associated site improvements. Jamie, can you provide an update for that item?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So we have received revised plans in response to the discussion at the last meeting. I did send out a staff report. The project engineer pointed out that I may have compared incorrect values, so I reassessed that and I threw in a corrected staff report regarding stormwater quality volumes. They are in fact reduced through each storm event that was assessed. And if there's any questions on that, I'm sure the engineer would be happy to go over that, but just a correction, because I had called that out as something that he probably would want to address because I thought they were increased, but they are in fact not. So unless there's anything else you want from me, I would suggest handing it over to the applicant to go over those changes and then take it from there.
Sounds like a plan. Who is speaking for 240903?
That's Jim Preddy, Criscolo Engineering, 420 East Main Street in Branford. As Jamie noted, there was a number of items that we had discussed at the last meeting that have been since added to the plan, pointing out some of the erosion control measures, description of, at the end of construction, how to treat the detention basin, and then also calculations for the water quality volume, which we have shared with the town engineer, and he was satisfied with that. I can, for what it's worth, I can share the screen. Again, just to remind everybody, this is probably the last undeveloped lot in the Woodlands on 95 development in Sycamore Way, Pin Oak, and a little bit of East Industrial Road. It's primarily wooded site with the sewer line running down at the bottom of the hill, which they clear occasionally. So there's sort of a natural break there. We are proposing a 20,000 square foot metal building, very similar to many of the other ones in this development. As you can see, we're roughly only developing about half the site with building and parking. Again, the grading plan showing the stormwater management, oil water separator at the in a bypass situation up here at this corner. We do have once this gets excavated out after the end of construction, there will be some bank run gravel and crushed stone at the top. In the bottom of this, the sides will get planted with the New England wet mix. We did add an erosion control plan or separated erosion control plan that calls out for the inlet protection at all the catch basins that are impacted, the location of a temporary topsoil stockpile as kind of as far away as we can on the site, and silt fence locations and that sort of thing. And then also we did add a landscaping plan that we needed to provide anyway for the next step at planning and zoning, which talks about street trees, some parking planning, building planning, and some shrubs that we have sporadically placed around this basin, as well as some evergreen trees along this side, the south side, where obviously where the sun hits the site quite a bit. But I think we've addressed all the issues that were brought up at the last meeting, and I guess I'll take any comments at this point or questions.
This is Commissioner Basserman. I guess there was a item that Jamie raised at the last meeting regarding the identification of the inlet regarding the protection plan. protection plan for that inlet. Is that in the notes somewhere, Mr.
Yes,
Purdy?
on the, where is it? On the erosion control plan, we do call it out. And note, there's a symbol around each catch basin. And then on here, we have our standard catch basin, the sediment control of catch basin, details. Also, the detail was added to, kind of define how to use the basin as a temporary sediment trap during construction as well.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Begemon. I know it was a previously wooded lot, and I'm just looking at this in terms of the number of trees that are going back onto the property. And it seems greatly reduced, obviously, from what the wooded lot was. Now I'm curious why there hasn't been a plan of putting trees in the area the slope is being changed and there's a retention basin there, but why isn't there a plan to put trees back in that area? Because a formerly shaded area, upland review area, is now going to be sun exposed, which will, in my mind, change that water temperature quite a bit. That's coming down into the retention basin.
We had treated the slopes here. Well, I'm assuming you mean specifically here.
Yeah.
We had treated the slopes with the conservation mix that they can, knock down a couple times a year, but more or less leave alone. Quite honestly, we didn't really discuss planting on this slope. We did the plantings that I know planting and zoning is going to want. Doesn't mean that we can't add some here. I mean, if the commission would like to see that, we can add it.
Mr. Brady, Commissioner Boda, where is the maintained sewer line relative to that slope?
It's down here at the bottom.
Yeah. This is Commissioner Boda again. I would tend to agree with Commissioner Begemond. I think if it's a wooded space, to put back some of that temperature control, I think that is more helpful than harmful. You were envisioning having a seed mix that would be mowed annually?
Yes. But that doesn't mean we can't sporadically place some trees here, a mix of some evergreen and coniferous trees in here. Without without going too crazy, I don't think it would be a big deal to, put a dozen trees in here and space them out, and left alone, they'll grow up rather quickly. If we mix in some, like white pine or that kind of thing, some of them will grow fast.
Any questions for this Commissioner Bassman? Any other questions for Mr. Purdy? Then, Jamie, why don't we pull up the staff report?
Right, this is Commissioner Boda. For that, the temporary sediment trap, is there specific language about the removal of the fine sediments prior to putting in the,
Sorry, I just realized I was muted, so everything I was saying, no one was hearing.
oh,
1 minute.
There is notes added to the plan, and I think Jamie has in a report that at the time of excavating the silts out, I think she wanted me to be present to inspect.
yeah.
That was a possible condition I had added for consideration.
Yeah, because I could be wrong. I was under the impression that with the new stormwater manual from Deep, that is something that they were discouraging, was the double duty of something to be temporary sediment trap during construction and then used as a basin. I mean, I understand, I see the engineering and the functionality behind it, and I could be misremembering, but I thought that it was something that they were discouraging.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. That's my understanding as well. However, I did talk with the town engineer a bit about this. Based on the initial information, there really wasn't enough information to kind of consider what actions were being taken to try and address, the problem with the temporary sediment trap being where the basin is the concern for reduced infiltration from what you're assuming before you start construction, because you're sending all of your fines to that location and they're going to settle out. So that was part of the reason why I recommended that condition be considered. So that way, when the material's excavated out, there can be some confidence that it's being excavated to a point where those fines have been removed. Honestly, I'm not sure what the actuality of that is, but
Well, and then there's how much gravel on top will be placed on top of it?
There'll be about a foot of crushed stone on top.
Yeah.
So we'll have to excavate, and Jamie's point to, having it being inspected while it's being excavated is valid. We may have to go a little bit deeper, but the plan was to fill it up with, banker and gravel up to the stone, and then the top foot would be stone.
Jamie, were you going to share the staff report?
yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Probably seeing
Your files.
I'm not on it right now. Okay. So all right, can everyone see the staff report now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Jamie, I do have one more question, and
Sure.
maybe for other folks as well. Is anybody else seeing like a giant gray bar across the top of? It's just when Jamie is displaying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Do you have any idea what that might be, Jamie? It was there last meeting. Not obtrusive to what we're looking at, as long as you're below it.
I don't know. I can try screen sharing a different way and see if that helps.
Can you see the gray bar?
I can see what I'm screen sharing briefly right there, and I just saw it, but no, I don't see it on my screen.
Okay.
It just got smaller.
It did.
So I did change how I was screen sharing. I don't know. And I do see that it says where you're sharing is about 1 inch down my screen.
Yeah. It's fine.
I'll work on it for next time.
Yeah, and just know that like below, if you have the people across the top of your screen, it's okay. It's I don't know. It's taking up.
I don't know why. Yeah, I can see that it's floating down.
Okay, just as long as because we can.
I don't know what to do about it though.
That's fine. We can see the text. I just figured I'd ask.
You're just missing the top of the program dialog box.
Yeah.
Okay. So we kind of went over the erosion controls. This first paragraph outlines what the measures are. The second one measures basically what we were just talking about, with the proposed basin acting as a temporary sediment trap and then being over excavated to try and keep infiltration abilities. Stormwater peak flows and volumes are reduced for all storm events, and the water quality volume letter has been submitted with the calculations showing that they're retaining the water quality volume. Landscaping plan has been provided. We've kind of touched base on that already. They've added 22 running service area along the basin and a couple of trees along the edges of the property. I mentioned that mowing frequency and height should be provided for the area where the conservation seed mix is proposed and the side slopes of the proposed basin. Stormwater drainage system maintenance notes references grass swale mowing, frequency of once a week for the basin. Please confirm if this is the proposed maintenance for the basin side slope or if less frequent mowing is proposed. And I didn't update this, but the town engineer. The town engineer reviewed and provided comments, and then he reviewed the revised materials and didn't have any further comments. So moving into possible conditions for consideration. Pre-construction meeting prior to land clearing, initial erosion control inspection with everything to be marked out by the surveyor, planting inspection, final inspection, maintenance details for the New England erosion control restoration mix and New England conservation wildlife mix shall be provided to the agency and shall be incorporated into the site maintenance plan. Surveyor shall identify in the field layout of site components, including but not limited to clearing limits, erosion controls, stormwater system components, buildings, access drives, and parking areas, and cuts and fills for site grading. After completion, an as-built survey must be submitted. Kind of goes on from there. Excavation of finds at point where temporary sediment trap is being abandoned and stormwater basin is being established shall be overseen by a licensed PE to ensure that material excavated to meets the infiltration assumptions prior to import of sand and gravel. Plantings around.
Jamie, sorry, wait, can you just pause 1 second? I want to read that again. Okay, thank you.
Plantings around.
This is Commissioner Bassman. While we stopped at the moment, Jamie, did you get confirmation on the slope mowing schedule?
I don't believe so.
Jamie, Clary Spangman. On 4, did we answer Peter's question? Are we done with that? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out how 4 and Peter's question related.
Yeah.
Now I forget Peter's question.
The mowing schedule for the slope.
Yeah. No, but maybe Jim Preddy can speak briefly to what's expected and can provide that as.
So we're gonna add some trees to the slope per Commissioner Begeman's comments. So we'll define a mowing schedule on the landscape plan when we resubmit it.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Begeman. So on number 4, there's some word missing, maybe, or it says overseen by a licensed PE to ensure that material excavated to blank meets the infiltration assumptions. Or is it just get rid of the 2?
Yeah, get rid of the 2.
I think that's why this is that's why I think that's why I had needed to reread it.
It's rough.
No, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And if the commission's looking to see the revised landscape plan prior to making any decision on the application, I can work to make that statement read a little bit better.
This is Commissioner Boda. I don't know that we need to hold the
Right.
application for the landscape plan. I think that that's something that can be reviewed in the office afterward as part of as a condition of approval. But that's just me.
Jim Preddy again. I was kind of hoping we could keep this moving, and yeah, I could review it with Jamie. Just reading that number 4, I think ensure the material excavated too. I think she meant the point to which it's excavated.
Yeah, so maybe to ensure that the bottom of the basin meets the infiltration. Right. Does that work
Make
better
sure we
for
got deep
everyone?
enough.
To ensure that the bottom of the basin meets the infiltration assumptions.
Right.
Okay, and then we kind of get into the ones that I throw in that, you know, all of these are for consideration. So I try and throw in everything so that way it's there if you want it. Plantings around the basin on the landscape plan dated 10/11/2024 shall be monitored and reports submitted by end of initial growing season and annually thereafter for 5 years, documenting at least 85% survival rate of vegetation and control of invasive species on the slope above the basin and around the basin. A bond shall be submitted to cover the plantings and monitoring, basically pursuant to Section 13. The bond will remain in place until compliance has been monitored for 5 years. And then if another thing the commission may want to consider is whether those 10 trees or whatever it is on the slope would also fit into that category. And then 6 is a bond shall be submitted to cover proper installation and maintenance of site erosion controls. Project engineer shall submit to the IW agent an itemized estimate of the cost to bond these items for review and approval. After approval by the agent, the bond is to be submitted consistent with Section 13 of the regulations prior to start of work. The bond will remain in place until the site is stabilized and the as-built survey documenting compliance with the permit has been received. And then we have the standard conditions and general provisions of all permits.
This is Commissioner Basserman. So, Jamie, could we then add, let's see, before A, include a sentence that says plantings on the slope and mowing schedule for that area shall be submitted to the inland wetland agent and approved prior to construction. And then all of that which follows A, et cetera, regarding the monitoring would include both the basin as well as the slope.
So we already have a condition that addresses the maintenance details for the seed mixes.
Just Commissioner Bass, what I was trying to address is Commissioner Begerman's
trees. Yeah.
So
comment about the trees.
In number 2, this is Commissioner Boda. In number 2, right where you are, we can add the trees to number 2. Well, we would need maybe a 2A and a 2B. So 2A would be trees to be added to the site plan. What are we referring to that area as?
Slope.
The slope.
parking lot and basin.
Mhm.
Say that again, the slope, what?
Between parking lot and basin.
Yeah, so 2A would be trees to be added to the slope between the parking lot and the basin. And then 2B would be maintenance details for New England erosion mix, and the trees shall be provided to the agency as it currently, everything is the same except for that we're adding the trees as well as the conservation mix. And
Commissioner
then,
Bassman, and the mowing schedule for that same area?
and then, so then if you went down to, I think it's, yeah, the mowing schedule, we're not sure where
So
the mowing schedule goes.
2 would be like landscape plan revisions, and then A and B like you identified.
Mhm.
Now, real quick while we're on this, is there anything the commission would want me to be specifically looking at with the trees? I think a number 10 was thrown out earlier. I don't know if you're sold on 10 or if you just want some trees added as is reasonable. And then the other question is, are you concerned whether they're specifically native?
This is Commissioner Begeman. I think Jim Preddy said 12.
Oh, so I can't
And
remember.
I can't in my head know how much area each tree is generally.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what they end up selecting. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I think it depends on what trees get selected and then when they go to place them in the field. Honestly, I think that I would certainly prefer native trees, and mast bearing trees are always helpful. So something that is producing nuts that is going to be useful for all that very cool carbon cycling that's happening. Mr. Preddy had mentioned some conifers, which I think would be okay, but I also sometimes feel like they're very inexpensive, so there's a rush to grab the white pine. Maybe it makes sense to match the kind of trees that are the mixture that is already out there. So I didn't go and take a look, but if it's oak and hickory, then it should be oak and hickory.
This is Commissioner Begeman. That sounds reasonable to me.
So did the mowing schedule that would go into 2? That would be included in 2?
yeah, so my understanding is 2 would kind of be more to say landscape plan revisions, and that would have A, trees to be added to the slope between parking lot and basin. B would be the maintenance details for the New England erosion control / restoration mix in New England. Conservation wildlife mix shall be provided to the agency and shall be incorporated into the site maintenance plan.
Which
and
would
shall
include,
be
yeah,
approved by the agent.
okay, and that would include a mowing schedule.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we need to also rework number 4 and then add monitoring to number 5.
So number 4, my suggestion would be to change it so that it says excavation of fines at point where temporary sediment trap is being abandoned and stormwater basin is being established shall be overseen by a licensed BE to ensure that the bottom of the basin meets the infiltration assumptions prior to import of sand and gravel.
Yeah. And then for 5, I think we needed to add I just wrote monitoring.
So I think
the trees. So monitoring.
Yeah, we want to add the trees.
that was it. It was my little monitoring was like linked to the trees, so that's what it was.
So probably,
Well, so it says plantings, and so once those are on the
it
landscape
also
plan,
specifically states a date. Um, we could say plantings on revised landscape plan to be submitted, or plantings are, I don't know, around basin and on slope between parking lot and basin on revised landscape plan to be submitted shall be monitored.
Mhm. And can we make sure that it's so? This is Commissioner Boda. Just thinking back about two again, and those trees that we're getting as good of a as great of a DBH as we can. We don't want to start with something teeny.
Commissioner Begemon, what was the abbreviation you just used? DBH?
DBH, that diameter at breast height.
Okay.
So it's the
Yeah. Thanks.
I think that was all that I had notes of. This is Commissioner Boda from the conversation.
So is there a minimum DBH that you're looking for? Or
I don't know what's available. But go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I think usually on plans with mitigation, I see, granted, we haven't had a whole bunch recently, around 1.5 inch. For street trees, you'll see like 3 inch, but there is a benefit to not having it be too large because smaller tree has less root disturbance. So they're often a little bit quicker to reestablish. But I also see that you don't want a tree that is shorter than me being planted out there. That's going to take a long time to establish.
Well, and honestly, I don't know. Aesthetically, it may not be pleasing, but I would. Would be a benefit to there being a variety of sizes, that they're not all exactly the same size. So I don't know that has to go into the plan like that. That feels very micromanagey, but
so we're basically providing some guidelines right now for the applicant to consider and hopefully incorporate.
Yeah. So a diversity of sizes, including some of the larger sizes as well. And the guidance would be to match the forest type that exists there.
Yeah, I'm hearing a variety of sizes and native species.
That sounds lovely. Yeah. Yeah, we just want to, we want to return the function that's there, that should be there, would be there.
Planning and zoning is going to press the native tree issues also.
That's great. That's nice. I'm glad.
For what it's worth, they also include in their most of their standard approvals a line about ensuring that all scaping is maintained and survives. It has to be replaced if it's not, kind of thing.
Oh, all right. Well, that's nice. We have some commonalities and we're all going after the same thing. So everybody knows what to expect in Branford, right?
Right.
Are we okay with everything else?
Yeah, just scroll up, Jamie, if you would. Keep going.
Anything in particular you're looking for?
No, just after all the changes,
Just running through everything again.
just trying to, yeah. Okay.
Is
Yep,
everybody
keep
ready?
going. I think that's good. Okay,
You say
any
go
other
before I
comments
finish
from the
the question?
commission? Say again?
I said, did we say go before I finish the question? As in, are folks ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, is it anybody, any other comments from the commission? If not, take a vote on 240903. Commissioner Bukowski?
Wait. There's no motion.
I think we have to do a motion first, so we do, don't we have to? So since Commissioner Boda was so clear with the new language, why don't we let Commissioner Boda put forth the motion for approval?
Thank you. This is Commissioner Boda. I'd like to make a motion that we approve Inland Wetland 240903 5 Pin Oak Drive. And include the conditions that were enumerated on the conditions for approval on the staff report dated October 24th, 2024, from sediment and erosion controls through the standard conditions and general provisions in the issuance of all wetland permits, as well as the changes to number 2 that were discussed regarding adding trees to the site plan, as well as trees to the monitoring plan, and the new wording for number 4.
Commissioner Boda, I lost you there towards the end. Like there was no sound coming out.
Oh, I said that was the end. I was done.
Oh, okay.
I said period.
Yeah.
This is Commissioner Ormrod. I'll second that.
Any other amendments to that motion or discussion?
No.
All right, this Commissioner Bassett will take a vote on 240903. Commissioner Gokowski.
Commissioner Gokowski, aye.
Commissioner Armrod.
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Bagman, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Okay.
Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
You too. Last in the application for review is 241001, 1 to 139 Bay Pathway, Island View condos, replacement of PVC drainage pipe with concrete drainage pipe. And I think we had material on this. Yes. Jamie, do you have an update?
Yeah. So Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, this is the start of the review for this application. I was contacted by the management company and their project engineer to discuss this project a couple months ago. They realized they were having an issue and needed to address it. And this is the application they're submitting in hopes to do that. So I have been out to the site this past summer, and then I just went out again today to grab some pictures and make sure there wasn't any huge changes in site conditions, and to take a firsthand look at the area to kind of be armored below the outlet. So we do have the project engineer present. I think it might be beneficial to have him kind of go over what the plan is for you guys. I'll just real quick share the GIS map and some photos, and then I think we can hand it over. So site might sound slightly familiar. The commission did have an application on the other side of the site a couple years back. Let's see if I can do this. All right, yeah, I see that gray box you're talking about. I don't know what it is. Disappears after a couple seconds for me. All right, so this is kind of central-ish to the site. I don't know if anyone's familiar with property, but if you take the middle entrance into the property and you drive all the way down, there's this drainage pipe that goes down between the units and discharges out to this watercourse network. And essentially some of the pipes are breaking apart and causing issues and resulting in sediment and pipe debris entering the watercourse. So they're looking to replace it. This is looking down through the lawn area from the edge of the parking lot. These
Jamie,
are pictures.
would you go back to the map for a second?
Yeah.
And just orient us with, can we also see in this map the other work, like where the other work would have been?
Yes and no. Well, actually, I think I was, oh, no. So yes and no. It's like just off of here. And we don't have any of the drainage features for that. I'm not really sure why we have this in our GIS because it's a private drainage pipe and we usually don't have them. But this slope over here is where that other repair was.
So further south?
Further south and slightly further east. So downstream from this one, if you will.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's just close up. I should have taken this a little bit further south. So these are just some photos again from today when I went out to the site. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see right here there's a bit of a erosion gully, and by a bit I mean it's like knee deep. And then it kind of levels out for a bit before the head wall, if you will, to the water course. And the last section of pipe is concrete, so they don't need to go all the way to the head wall. I'm trying to think which way is this looking. So yeah, here's that head wall, and they do have some temporary erosion control measures in place to kind of help make sure that conditions don't worsen. This is the area that they are recommending have some, I believe, geotextile fabric and rock placed to help armor it. This is below, I don't know if I took a picture of, yeah. So this is that area, and this is where the outlet is. And then the rest of the pictures are just further downstream, so that I think I'll skip them for now. So I don't know, Larry, are you on the call and you want to run over what the proposal is? And do you want to screen share or do you want to use my screen share? was on the call.
Sorry, could you hear me?
Can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay. Um, so my name is Larry Marsick. I'm a professional engineer for the last 40 years. And I was hired by the Island View to develop repair plans for their central drainage system. This is at the very bottom of what you call Village Lane, and it's right across from Memorial Field, I think it's called, Veterans Memorial Park. It's called. That's the entrance. You follow all the way down to the end. There's a couple catch basins, and then the drainage pipe is like 400 feet to the outlet. And the original drainage that was put in the 80s was undersized. So in the 1990s, it was upgraded. And when they upgraded, they put in a bunch of manholes to cut down to the slope of the pipe, but they elected to go with a HDPE pipe. So on the application, it says PVC. This is HDPE. It's like a black corrugated pipe. And that's what was used for the upgrade section to where Jamie said the last segment is concrete, and that's still in great shape. So what the association started to notice was around the manholes, they were getting some settlements. And then finally, we saw some pieces of black pipe corrugated pipe coming out of the outlet. So we had it video inspected, and we found out that the pipe is very compromised. We don't know if it's because of poor construction, poor material quality, or what. But what the goal is to get it replaced with a much stronger pipe, which is concrete. So all we plan on doing is keeping the same manholes and just taking out the plastic pipe and replacing it with concrete pipe. So it's a 24-inch pipe for 300 feet from the catch basins to where the last manhole switches from plastic to concrete. And we want to make it all concrete from the two catch basins down to the last manhole. So what's happening now is that because of the pipe is compromised, during heavy storm events, the manhole cover just on the top of the hill comes off and the water spills out. And as Jamie noticed, there's erosion going on down the hill during the heavy storm events. So it definitely needs to be replaced. There's no questions asked. And we want to go with a stronger pipe, not go back with the plastic pipe that was originally used there. So, and then also, in talking to Jamie, I didn't have a chance at first to look at the outlet. And the outlet back in the late 1990s was called a grouted riprap. So, from above, where we looked at above, it looked okay. So, but if you actually get down there, you noticed on looking downstream on the left-hand side, there's a kind of a gully starting that's probably 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep, and probably 10 to 15 feet long. But there's no access to get down there. So you would have to go and do all that work manually. So you would put in a geotextile fabric as a separation layer and then fill the rest with riprap and maybe grout it, because the grouting after whatever, so 20 years is still in great shape. So at least in this case, it worked, the grouting. So what we plan on doing is the last probably 100 feet, like Jamie says, there's a level area, then it gets into a steep area, and then there's a grass area. The steep area is in a wooded area, so we plan on, after we replace the pipe, there's a seed mix we want to use on it, and then we're going to do a permanent erosion control blanket. So because no one's going to mow it, it's going to turn back into woods. So this stuff stays, it doesn't get degraded by UV light. And then, of course, the top section gets mowed, and we have a seed mix for that mowable area there. So that's the project in a whole. We just want to replace the pipe with something that's more durable and not have problems. So any questions?
This is Commissioner Boda. Can you talk about the not the final product, but the construction process? The work
So
process?
yes, I can do that. So on if you see the drawings, where the catch basin is, there is a like a 2 foot segmental wall made out of blocks. That's very up by the parking area at the very end of Village Lane, where the road splits and goes right or left. There's some parking areas right in front of you, and right there would be the construction entrance, where we're going to use construction mat putting down, and at one side of the pipeline is where we're going to enter there, and then all the work, replacing all the pipe and everything, will be from that access point there all the way down to the end there. There's and I don't know, this was back, there's a Island View 1 and Island View 2. There's somewhere between the two, there's a property line. We are not going on Island View 2 to do any of the work. It's all staying on Island View 1, and all the access is from that one construction entrance there. So everything, we'll start at the very bottom and work ourselves right out and right into the parking lot. So that's what the intent is. And again, using hay bales and road control, we put them in there because we thought it was the right thing to do at this point until we get approvals from the wetlands regarding this.
And this is Commissioner Boda. Are those black rectangles representing hay bales that are currently on site?
No, close, but that wasn't the intent, is to put them there. I think we put them in there and then we kind of drew them in, but they're in a general area, give or take 10 feet or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And how long would this process take from the time that you roll out the vehicles and start excavating until?
Probably 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
This Commissioner Bassway, because the manholes are not changing, I assume the pitch of the pipe in all that 300 feet does not change?
That is correct. So I believe in your package you have the original plans by Donald T. Ballou that was done in '89, and we're trying to hold the same stuff that he had there back in the design there. So the only thing that we have to do is we have to modify the holes in the manhole in order to accommodate the concrete pipe, which is not too much different, but we have to make sure that there's good seal between the manhole and the new pipe.
As a follow-up, you said that the new pipe is 24-inch?
Yeah, and the existing pipe is 24-inch.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're not changing anything except changing material type.
Got it.
Is that plan that we're looking at right now from Don Ballou?
I believe so.
That's nice.
Again, I had the blue line in front of me.
Yeah, it's Don Blue.
Oh, that's really nice. Commissioner Boda again. So are you stockpiling the material that is coming out for those 3 weeks? What does that look like? Are you doing it in segments? Are you removing everything and then putting the pipes in? Are you removing in segments?
So we'll probably do it. Yes, because you do not want a storm to hit when have a pipe that's out.
Mm-hmm.
They have to complete a segment every day, and connect the segments, whatever it is. Say they're 10 feet short, they got to put something in there to connect it, either the back to the plastic or what, because you don't want to have a storm drain system that's
disconnected.
That's disconnected, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is correctly. That's what we have to do. And then all the material, what we plan on doing is and we don't know. I know in plastic, HDPE, it's important to have good backfill and compaction around the pipe. And we don't know what happened here, but we are going to truck in some processed stone, it's called, and use that for backfill around the pipe and underneath the pipe to get good bedding material. So some of the material would have to be trucked off the site, and then some good material for bedding around the pipe that we put back in.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Jamie, can you, I'm looking at the pictures that are in the file from July. And it shows, I'm trying to piece together the plan and the current pictures that are in there.
So those pictures are on the steep section, which is the area on the last two, three manholes. If you look at the drawings, also.
Okay, because I see that in one of the pictures, I see there's a lot of sediment around looks like one of the manholes.
Yeah, that's the one. So what happens there is on the very bottom, the grade changes from very steep to level, and when the water was coming down the hill, it settled out right where you see that. That's where the change in grade is right there. So it's hard to see that three-dimensionally in a picture.
Okay. Now
So that material, we also plan on bringing that, we have to pick up that material that got down there. It didn't get into the wetlands because it settled out right before there. So that's why we added some additional erosion control to make sure that it keeps staying in that area there and not get done any further if, by the time we get working on this project. The good part is, I'm not saying the good part is, but we haven't had good rain, so we've been lucky a little bit.
In the last picture that I see here, do I see a corrugated pipe or part of a corrugated pipe in the picture where there's a concrete?
Yeah.
Yes, that must be that's probably the pieces that are there.
Yeah, that's part.
I got one sitting right next to me that I was going to show you. Jamie, did I sent you a picture? I think it was today or yesterday of the corrugated piece. Do you have that in the file?
Let's see. I do have the pictures you sent yesterday.
It was a piece I took out when I went down there to look.
Now, any of those trees that have fallen, you're not going to be disturbing those in any way, shape, or form. You're just going to let them stay there and do their thing.
That down below the outlet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were. We weren't going to because the wetlands that was flagged was really from the outlet down. So the work that we're going to do to fill in that gully was going to be done by hand because there's no way you're going to get a machine down there to do that work. And if you do get a machine in there, you're going to disrupt more things than just to have it done by hand. So we don't plan on doing anything down that way. If you want to do some cutting of getting some, to make the flow better down there, we can do that, but we don't intend to go down there with any machines or anything.
Jamie, go back up and you can see it in one of the pictures. Go slow. It's right there.
Yeah, so that's to the right is the erosion going on. That's the gully there. So what happens is that rock there is called grouted riprap, meaning that it's filled with concrete. They take the rock and they fill it with concrete to kind of hold it together so it doesn't erode out. It's common for higher velocity type water outlets. But the problem is right where it leaves that and it goes back into the natural, that's where you start getting some erosion. And to be honest with you, over the many, many years it's been working, it's not really a lot. So it's not that bad.
There's actually a piece of the pipe there too. That's what David was.
Yeah, I see it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few pieces of pipe there, right?
Commissioner Goklowski again. A question: How long has this situation been going on before it was the association decided to do anything about it?
You asking me?
Yes.
Oh, well, they noticed some of the depressions in it and stuff. And at one point, it wasn't, it wasn't to a point where it was obstructing the water flow. So I think it's something that when it started getting worse, that's when it came to attention, let's get it done. So,
And when do you plan on starting this project?
um, well, I think they would like to get it started as soon as possible.
So before the winter is what you're saying?
Yes.
This is Commissioner Bergman. Are any of the trees that are growing there going to be removed to do the work?
Down the slope, yes. There's a slope segment there. Maybe it's 100 feet. That there's a segment maybe 25 feet by 100 feet that has to be removed. I'm not sure the high quality trees. I think they're just brush trees. Because don't forget, this thing was placed 20 years ago, something since 1999, something like that. So there is some growth since then.
So this is Commissioner Bergman. I have a question for Jamie. In a situation like this where the water is underground and trees are being removed along the underground pathway of the water, is there any reason to replace the trees that get cut?
So the problem with replacing trees near drainage pipes is the way that trees interact with drainage pipes. So I think from my vantage point, stressing reducing what needs to be removed to what needs to be removed makes the most amount of sense, and then making sure that that area is stabilized.
Yes, it's this one. Typically, we don't like trees because the roots get into the pipes because they like the water, and that's when things start breaking apart. I don't know if this is the case there, but just like septic systems and stuff, it's not a good idea to put trees and stuff over the top of it because of the root intrusions that you have. I mean, we plan on stabilizing it with a permanent erosion control mat, and then we have a seed mix that we can use there.
So this is kind of looking up that slope area. So you can see there's a couple smaller trees that would be removed, and there's probably a couple of larger trees as well. But for the most part, they're small trees.
So also, what you noticed on the map that Jamie showed you at first, there is a parallel sewer main that goes through here too. It's the sewer main that picks up all the sewer. So you do need access to get to the sewer in case it gets clogged and stuff like that.
This is Commissioner Boda. Is there, since there's going to be a little bit of an opening there where those trees will be removed, an intention to then monitor for invasives? That's a sweet invitation.
There is no plan at this time.
Yeah.
Personally, I think, given the proximity, I think that would be a helpful addition if there's going to be some opening up of sunlight, which the other trees will appreciate, I'm sure, having a little extra room and a little extra light. But we also know that is how the invasives find their way in, with that extra sun and that extra space, and kind of folks coming in. And if you do the work in early winter, I think that will help. But it's certainly worth monitoring and planning to remove any invasives that find their way in the first few years.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, we don't have a staff report for this.
I do have a staff report.
Was it in the Dropbox?
I believe so. Yeah.
Item.
It didn't have a number. It's just 2024 10/21 staff report.
Got it. Oh, yep,
So
thank you.
Richard Snarski did the wetland flagging. The wetland flags were up. I could see them out in the field. You could see some of them in the pictures. I think given the circumstances, we don't have a wetland report. I don't know that that's needed for the commission to review this application. Do have a site plan based off of the previous drainage plan and existing manholes. We've already went over the bit of the property history. Erosion controls plan includes construction entrance, silt fence backed with hay bales. Slopes greater than 1 are proposed to have permanent turf reinforcement mat. Construction sequence indicates that work will begin at downstream most point position of the site, and no more than 1 run of pipe will be removed and replaced at a time. They're not modifying any conveyance or anything. They're just looking to repair with concrete versus plastic. Landscape plan, they have grass mix proposed within the existing lawn area. Conservation 2 mix was originally proposed, which they replaced with the Ernst Seed native steep slope mix with green oats for outside of the lawn area within that disturbed wooded area. I had suggested they might want to consider something with more diversity of species and more kind of woodland type stuff. And this one was specifically called for on steep slopes and was what was used on the other side of the site and seems to be taking really well. So that's what that is. And then potential conditions for consideration. Clearing limits, pre-construction meeting with clearing limits, initial erosion control inspection, final inspection. A bond shall be submitted to cover proper installation and maintenance of site erosion control controls would remain in place until site is stabilized. An as-built survey documenting compliance with the permit has been received. I don't know if you need an as-built in this particular case because the manholes aren't changing. It's just the pipe sections. I don't know if you need this one either, but particularly if they're going to be starting in now and may not necessarily have the site stabilized until the spring. Upon clearing of site and until the site is stabilized, the applicant shall retain a qualified erosion control professional to inspect the soil erosion and sediment controls weekly and after each measurable precipitation event 0.25 inches or greater. Report shall be submitted to the Inland Wetland Agency as requested. Disturbance on either side of the drainage pipe sections to be replaced shall be kept to a minimum as needed to safely complete the proposed work. To reduce erosion potential, no unnecessary clearing in the wooded area shall occur. And 5, to the extent possible, any pieces of the pipe material which has washed out should be removed from the outlet/riprap area that exists at the headwaters of the watercourse and properly disposed of. And then we could also add 6, cleared areas shall be monitored and managed for invasive species for 3 years. I'm not sure. And then just another thing I want to identify is I was not aware when I wrote this whether or not there was going to be any repairs to the outlet. So I don't have any conditions regarding that. Also, this report didn't review that. The application was submitted with no activity in the wetland or watercourse. Arguably, it is a maintenance thing to prevent further erosion. Arguably, say it's beneficial. So I just want to identify that that's kind of still potentially open-ended in case anyone has any concerns there. There was no fee submitted for activity in the wetland. But it's not like they're looking to fill wetlands. They're looking to prevent additional issues that might arise. So
This is Commissioner Goklowski. There's 300 feet of concrete pipe, 24-inch, you said?
Yes, that's correct.
And what is the size of each section that is going to be laid?
They vary. Like some are 30 feet, some are twice that length. If you look at the drawing, they vary because there are multiple manholes. In order to reduce the velocity of the water going down to the wetlands, they step the manholes, meaning the pipe comes in up on top of the manhole, and then 6 or 8 feet down, it leaves the manhole. So there's a big step in order to reduce the energy of the water that comes down that hill. So to answer your question, there is a variety of pipe segments. I can actually, if I look at the plan here.
I was just curious. I
Oh,
this is
hold on.
the first time I'm seeing something like this. So
Okay, so it's here's the lengths: 33 feet, 24 feet, 68 feet, 61 feet, 54 feet, and 42 feet. Those are the lengths.
okay, and how are these going to be moved on site?
So they dig down and they remove the plastic pipe, which is they're just going to rip it out, and then there's going to be concrete pipe that's going to be stored somewhere on the site where they got to pick it up and bring it down and lay it in place with an excavator. Most of the work is going to be done with an excavator with a payloader bring in the pipe to them.
Okay.
So again, the sewer's on the other side, so we're not going to work from that side because we don't want to do anything to the existing sewer line that's there.
All right, thank you.
This is Commissioner Bassman. So Jamie, did you have an item 6 that you were thinking of adding in terms of these conditions?
So the item 6 that I was thinking based on Commissioner Boda's comments earlier was something about monitoring slash managing invasives.
So the only thing is that area is not going to be mowed. So, I mean, if there's a way of monitoring it and then cutting it, we could do that. But we're going to use a permanent erosion control blanket. So that's going to be there. It's going to be a netted thing that's staying there in order to prevent erosion, in the future. A lot of these blankets go away in a year or two because they're UV degraded. The intent here is to put a permanent one in there.
Yeah, I mean, it might
maybe
also
maybe the monitoring would be. Go ahead, Jamie.
there's also kind of this more level area above the head wall where I know there's some existing multiflora rose. Generally speaking, it's not bad through here. There's a little bit of multiflora rose, and I saw a couple young sprigs of euonymus or burning bush. But
This is Commissioner Bassman, but so I understand Commissioner Boda's concern was the area is going to get more sunlight after
disturbed and it's
this
gonna get
effort, at
more
least for some
sun,
period,
yeah.
right?
yeah.
So
So the only thing I can say is it was disturbed back in '98, and what you see there is what grew because of the light and stuff that has been growing there. And I can't tell you what's there. I'm an engineer, not anything to do with trees or vegetation or anything.
Yeah, well, this is Commissioner Boda. I mean, as far as invasives go, we're constantly getting new ones. That's sort of the state that we're in, and given the proximity to the wetland and the work, it's the disturbance that's happening now, and so the short-term piece is the action of the disturbance, and then the long-term is the change in light structure, which can certainly be more inviting to species, especially things like barberry and the winged euonymus that and garlic mustard, where as soon as there's a little bit more light, they are quite opportunistic. And so pulling them, removing them appropriately while the other trees that are there have the opportunity to grow and return that canopy to what it was. That's an important mitigation piece from our end.
I understand. I don't have an answer because that's not.
Yeah, no, that's, I think we're just waiting for somebody to take another step now.
Jamie Frederick and the Wilton agent. I'll just loop around real quick to that minor activity proposed within the water course. It is a small area. It's under the area that would require any sort of mitigation, if you will. And again, it's how large of an area did you say it was?
It's probably going to be like 100 by 20 foot wide, in that area there. That's actually going to be disturbed.
And I'm sure if the commission had any problems with it, they'd probably just back off from doing it because it's not really essential to the repair they're doing, but it's something that I asked them to take a look at and should ultimately overall help with impacts to the wetland and water course downstream.
Is there dewatering that needs to happen?
No, because the groundwater is down a lot deeper. No, there isn't. Besides rain that comes in.
I mean, we could say that it should be completed during a dry period.
Dry period.
Yeah, the winter, that's why, I mean, the winter would be nice to be able to get it done.
Yeah. I mean, it's on the side. It's only in an area where when the water's high would be impacted.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Can we add an item to those conditions such that we can move this along, or do we need to come back on this?
I think relative to the invasive species, unless the commission's looking for a specific plan, you could make a condition that the disturbed areas be monitored and managed for invasive species by a qualified individual for 3 years would be my recommendation. I think you could go up to 5, but I don't know that it's necessary. And then for the riprap, you could say that work. I mean, you could say it must be done by hand, but the application materials already say that. You could add that it must be done during a dry period.
You mean the work done in the dry period?
Yeah.
So I mean,
meaning that like when they go in to place the stone, it shouldn't be when like after a storm event flowing through there.
But I just didn't want to limit this project to, the late summer or something like that. We would like to get in there and get it done. But
I don't think it has to be defined to a dry season. I think it's a dry period. Right now we're in dry period.
This is Commissioner Bergman. Jamie, I didn't hear what you were just saying. I think you're trying to make a distinction between dry period and dry season.
Oh, yeah, I was just commenting right now we're on a dry period, I basically just that there's not actively water flowing that's going to cause an issue.
Jamie, you keep fading out.
Right, I think my earbuds are dying. I'm going to switch back
There you
over
go.
to my computer.
There you go.
Oh, is that working?
Yeah,
Um,
So can we go back to this is Commissioner Baskin, can we go back to the staff report? And I guess if we were to ask for monitoring for 3 years, that usually is down. Is that part of 3 or is that a new number?
I would say it's a new number unless you want it to be bonded for, at which point you could lump it into number 2.
No, it could be 6. Jamie, what was the other, I started writing down something for 6. What was the other thing that you said?
For number 6, or
No.
I was suggesting that the riprap repair work below the outlet be done, you could
Oh,
say, where
yeah.
ground conditions are dry. If there's a concern with the dry period phrasing. I mean, it's not that there can't be any water coming out. We just don't want water flowing through the area where work is being conducted.
No question. We will not fix that when there's water flowing through the pipe, for sure. So yes, the work will be done without a rainstorm event. I mean, what you do get there, like if you go there today, you'll see some dribbling water coming out of there because of the groundwater from up above coming into it and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but there's no, gushing water out of there that can do any damage while we do a repair down there. And that repair, again, is going to be done by hand, not by a machine.
Right.
So if we said the riprap repair, excuse me, the riprap repair will be completed when ground conditions are dry, e.g., not when the pipe is running from a rainfall event.
Yep, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Those guys, walking with the rocks will be also happy about it.
Right. A little bit, it's just common sense.
Right.
All right. I have two conditions if we're otherwise okay. Yeah.
Why don't we hear those?
Okay, I will make a motion to approve Inland Wetland 24-1001, Island View Village, aka 1 through 139 Bear Pathway, to approve the permit, including the possible conditions for approval outlined in the staff report dated October 21st, 2024. All of the possible conditions for consideration. And in addition to those, we will add number 6, that the site shall be monitored and managed for invasives by a qualified individual for no less than 3 years and up to 5 years if necessary to ensure invasive species are held back while the canopy regrows. And a report is to be submitted to the Inland Wetland Office annually, reporting the status. And additionally, that the riprap repair shall occur when ground conditions are dry, e.g., not when the pipe is running from a rainfall event. Additionally, we will include the standard conditions listed on the document as well as the general provisions in issuance of all permits.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. I second that motion.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Any amendments to that motion? All right, we're able to take a vote at this point. Commissioner Arad,
Commissioner Ormerod, aye.
Commissioner Begerman,
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Gokowski,
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye.
I want to thank you, Commissioner.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll do our best to
Oh, yeah, our-
get the job done when everybody's happy. Okay, thank you.
Our first enforcement activity, cease and correct 240901 and NOV High Plains Road number 9 and 40 Hickory Hill regarding the sedimentation of the pond located on 40 Hickory Hill Lane. This is a continuation of the show cause hearing. I think we were looking for some additional information on the flocculant. Jamie, did that come in?
I have not received anything. However, I see that the soil scientist is with us this evening.
Okay, why don't we hear from the soil scientist?
Good evening, everyone. This is George Logan, Rema Ecological Services. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. I
Yes.
have a different setup. So I was at this, well, let's go back up a little bit. So when we selected the particular flocculant, one of the things that the manufacturer had asked us to do is to give her a little more information about the watershed, the sizing of the pipes, the interconnections, if there was a catch basin before that could be accessed. So yesterday I went over to the site. By the way, the actual house that was the issue is beautiful. It's absolutely green. Excellent job that was done there. The catch basin, it's an old catch basin that I found, which is connected with the rest of the road that as it goes up, is very deep. One of the deepest ones I've seen. And the pipe that's coming from it is very high and quite large. It's at least a 2-footer that's going to the pond. So there's no potential for putting flock logs there. They will be overwhelmed. So one of the things that I was hoping we would have had, of course, we haven't had any rainstorms. I wanted to be able to see what the flow characteristics were between the small pond and the larger pond. And unfortunately, as I'm looking at the forecast, I don't see any rain for at least a week and a half. But anyway, so we're not going to stop with that. We're just going to order the flocks. They're going to have to be low profile because that pipe that goes between the two ponds is relatively small. So we don't want to use, have the flock logs become a restriction during a storm. So that was one thing. And I was there yesterday, and one of the things that I noted is the small pond is quite deep. It was dug pretty deep. I stuck my auger to about almost to the handle and tried to grab sediment. And when I grabbed it and brought it up, there was no sediment, no fines that, and if there were some, they were probably vacated as I was bringing my auger down, my auger up through the water. So it looks like the slug has moved to the larger pond from the smaller pond, which is, I guess, good news in the fact that things are pushing in or they're being isolated already within the pond bottom. So I expect that between now and the next meeting, which I believe is on the 14th, we will have the logs in our possession, and then we're just going to wait for the first storm that comes. And I'm also going to provide a little bit of information that folks requested as far as what the monitoring would look like. So that's kind of where we're at now with this particular situation.
Thank you for that update. Sounds to me like then we would reserve any further discussion until November 14th. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I think there's someone online that might want to say something. I just saw him a moment. Is Tom here?
Yeah, Tom's here. Yeah, I'm Capabianco. Yeah, I just wanted to, as a taxpayer and an owner of quite a few different homes in that town, I don't want to drag this on past Christmas, if you know what I'm saying. So, I mean, it's a pond. We did everything we had to do. We put 31,000 square feet aside. The silt fence was not put up, which I take full responsibility, even though it wasn't my job, but I'm a part owner there of my son's home. So I think we've done everything that the town has asked us to do. We've hired George. We've done testing locally in Connecticut. We then sent it another step. Someone on the board actually said, will this settlement actually settle in the pond, that we'd be okay without doing anything else? We actually had that conversation. So I would just like to, myself as a homeowner, know, are we 2 Thursdays away and saying the flock logs are in? We got our test. I mean, and I could call this a day and be done, and the town be happy, and my son and myself and his new wife be happy. So when does this kind of end is what I'm asking as a homeowner.
This is Commissioner Bassford. I don't know what end constitutes at this point. It sounds like on the 14th, we should have the information that we requested and should be able to, make this happen. But it's going to require a meeting on the 14th.
Which is fine. I'd like to, all I'm saying is just, I'd like to, and it's been 2 months now. I've done everything I've been asked for by hiring specialists and paying out a lot of money and getting everything. And like the house came out absolutely gorgeous with, you got 31,000 square feet aside, and Jamie's been there. Katie's been there. So what I'd like to do, hopefully, if there's a resolution on the 14th, I have no problem with going, handling another meeting, but I just would like to put it to bed, as you could probably understand.
Clearly.
Yeah, hopefully at
the
November 14th meeting, we'll have the information to review. And then at that point, there'll be the monitoring recommendation. So there probably will be a period of time during that monitoring period, but you wouldn't have to check in with the commission throughout that period. It would be checking in at the end to say, yep, it's done. Hopefully it worked the way that we thought it would. And then it would be done. But it wouldn't be you coming to every single commission meeting.
All right. Well, hopefully we have all that.
So yeah, hopefully next meeting we can.
So are we skipping a Thursday? Is it 3 weeks? Is that why it's not every other, or am I just off?
It's usually the second and fourth Thursday of the month.
Oh, okay, then that's fine. All right, no, I'm fine with that as long as everybody understands where I'm coming from. It's it's the pond. We've done everything we could do. We've hired specialists. We've tested it. We've shipped it across country, and now we just want to move on with everyone's life. And like I said, he just got married 2 weeks ago, and I just want to move on and start working on the house and not worry about, we're already planning and zoning's all set with Evan and everybody else we spoke to. And as Jamie knows, we've done everything we had to do in person. She's been there. So I would just like to, hopefully we could do that on the 14th, and I'd be very happy with that.
This is Commissioner.
Thank you for your quick response.
Thank you.
I have one question for Mr. Logan.
Sure.
Commissioner Goklowski. Now, as you stated, you said everything, you said the property looks good. So you're not seeing any runoff from the property since the sod has been installed. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So right now, his property is not causing any damages to the pond any further.
Correct. That's done. So the only sediment that we may have is what's in the system, meaning in the pipes and the drainage, possibly in.
But that could be coming from somewhere else and not the subject's property.
That's also true. I mean, this is an urbanized watershed. Obviously, there's a lot of impervious surface that is draining into this pond. So it's not like a pristine pond. However, we need to take care of business as far as making sure that the sediment doesn't get resuspended, which is why we're recommending the flock logs.
Okay. So at this stage of the game, your professional opinion is what you're stating is that there is no runoff coming from the subject's property to go into the pond.
That is absolutely correct.
I just want to get this in my own mind because I can understand the original runoff, but after all the sod was placed, I haven't been up to see the property. I'm gonna make a point to go take a drive by it myself, but,
It's very green.
Great.
all right, thank you.
Perfect weather for that. Except for a little rain. I mean, we could have used a little more rain, I guess.
We certainly can.
Appreciate your efforts, guys. Thank you.
All right, and this is being continued to November
Thank you.
14th.
Correct.
All right, thank you for your understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
CC 240903, 20 Huntington Drive, grading and vegetation removal within
think you
100
might have
feet of a
missed
wetland.
one.
Again, a continuation of the show
Wait,
cause
I
hearing.
think you missed one.
Jamie, were you up there recently?
Wait. I think you missed one.
Oh, you're right. What did I do? Not turn the page? Yeah. I'm sorry. CC correct 240902, 17182 Leeds Island Road. Clearing an earth disturbance without a permit.
All right.
You were out
Jamie
there
Frederick and the
recently?
Wetland agent. Yeah, so we've received initial findings from the soil scientist. I met with the property owner and the soil scientist yesterday, kind of take a look at things and kind of high level discuss what process might look like. And I think for tonight, kind of the commission getting a feel, hopefully everyone had a chance to look at the soil scientist preliminary findings, kind of get a feel for what your thoughts are. And it seems to me that there is certainly some activity that would qualify potentially as a jurisdictional ruling request, as was indicated at the last meeting. So I would expect to see one of those being submitted. And then there is some activity that I think may exceed a jurisdictional ruling or as of right activity.
This is Commissioner Boda. I'm sorry. I don't remember there's so many of these. I don't remember what one this is.
So
a little history or
yeah, let me see.
Would it be helpful for George Logan, who did a soil report and current site conditions report, to do a very brief summary from what you could answer?
That would be perfect, Mr. Logan, if you don't mind just recapping briefly.
I wouldn't mind it at all. I'm just wondering if Jamie could put figure A on the screen. Maybe that would be helpful from my report, which is the attachment. Okay, so there's the gray bar again.
I don't know.
That's good. That's fine. Okay, so yeah, so let me tell you what we've done so far. This is almost a 3-acre parcel.
Is that
you can see Leeds Island Road there on the left along the property boundary. Just kind of give you an idea of what's going on there. So this is a woodlot. It's obviously undeveloped. If you go to the south, you see the very dark signature. That's quite a legitimate wetland there. It's probably somewhat backed up by the driveway that goes to that particular house. And there's some kind of a seepage. I wouldn't even know if there's a pipe there, but at any rate, it comes to about where the arrow for A13. And then there's a ditch there. You can see the dark signature goes left. And then it joins another dugout ditch, which is a couple feet deep at points. And that goes all the way almost to the next driveway, which is just off the site. And there's a pipe there. Apparently that pipe has had issues in the past by being clogged. It has been recently unclogged and it's flowing more freely now than it has in the past. Wetland delineation was done by myself back a few days ago. 13 flags, as you can see there, A1 to A13. And interestingly enough, this wetland delineation more or less coincides with one that's the one that Jamie put in her cease and desist in the back, which is a delineation done a few years back by another soil scientist. I don't know who that was, but and looking at what I've done in this line that you see here, the blue line, is plus or minus, call it 10 feet based on my phone GPS. I took points along the line in order to recreate that, so it's fairly accurate. Jamie and I looked at it yesterday. Now, the wetland itself is interesting. So when the ditch was dug years and years ago, by the way, this whole parcel was open probably either to the late 70s or early 80s, and it was used as a hayfield. And then it was let go, and now you have a sort of a first generation forest, if you will. The trees are relatively small, some of them are. So on average, we'll call it 8 to 10 inches, no more than that. There's a few poplars that are a little bigger. Again, hardwoods in the uplands, sugar maple, red maple, poplar, tulip poplar, that is. In the wetlands, there has been disturbance in the past, and I assume because it was wet, that the farmer was kind of going back and forth, maybe, re-dredging the brook or the intermittent watercourse, ditched intermittent watercourse and casting things over to the bank. So there's a portion of the wetland, particularly the southern portion, central southern portion, that has characteristics that could potentially not be poorly drained anymore, but there's no way to figure that out without monitoring with piezometers. So we're calling it a wetland. And you can see that there was kind of a tangle of shrubs and vines there, a lot of invasive species, and those were kind of taken out recently. A few dead and dying trees, mostly ashes, were taken out, and you can see the regeneration of ashes here and there, and also the invasive species. And at some point, if you look at the wetland and that portion that's a little higher and disturbed, you can see just almost a solid Japanese honeysuckle starting to grow, Asiatic bittersweet. So that kind of gives you a clue as to the disturbance that's happened there. But however, shall we call it the northern third? You can see the darker signature. You can see the 1 foot contour that kind of does a circle. So that's a wetter area. You might even have some very poorly drained soils there. The soils themselves, the ones down there are Rahams, which is a sill loam. And even though we're in a till situation, that's usually you find it in an outwash, but it's a wind-blown or, waterborne, very fine sandy loam or even silt loam that is connected there. You can find. And we looked at it. As far as vegetation in that area, it's a little more diverse, especially close to the property boundary. There's some good trees there. We saw some pin oak. We saw some swamp white oak. There's a couple of elms still surviving. Good vegetative diversity in that area. And then if you follow the property boundary, northern property boundary, and start going uphill a little bit, the vegetation there is also rather diverse, although you start getting a little more of invasive species. So overall, the wetland has some areas that are disturbed and low functioning, and the northern portion is the one that's the most functioning, if you will. Overall, it has seen disturbance in the past. Now, what has happened here, and as my report would indicate, is that the owner, not realizing exactly, just by the character of the wetland, the fact that it looked a little drier, except for that one spot, the 1/3 in the end, didn't realize perhaps that was a wetland. And so we have about 8,000 plus or minus square feet of disturbance within the wetlands, vis-a-vis anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of a sort of a crushed stone that has been placed there. And there's also, we'll call it 30 to 50% other areas outside of the wetland in the uplands where similarly the stone has been put down. Now, from looking at it, at this point, it doesn't look like it has an erosion potential. Of course, we haven't had any rain. It is coarse. It is crushed stone. There is some fines in it, but they're probably entrained with the other stone that's there. The idea here for the property owner was to create a little bit of a gentleman's farm, if you will, wanted to see if he could tap some of the sugar maples particularly and get some syrup going, and just basically enjoy this particular property with a farming use. And I understand that this is also, there's a little bit of a emotional connection to this property, the fact that he grew up in the house that's just to the right, which is his parents' house. And he remembers playing and running around this area as a youth. So that's kind of where we're at this point. Just the preliminary information that we have. And we just wanted to hear what Jamie might want to contribute to the commission and see if there are any additional questions.
So yeah, Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. I think the commission, so there was a cease and correct order issued. The wetland scientist has done the investigation. We've got the understanding that there's some potential agricultural or forestry type use that might be as of right. So I think the commission would want to see a jurisdictional ruling request submitted for those activities. I think some of the activities may span beyond the scope of jurisdictional ruling, and the commission probably will want to see a restoration plan for those activities. I don't know what the timing of that looks like, if the commission wants to review the jurisdictional ruling first, so that way it's not necessarily a little bit circular, and hopefully it's regressional. The deposition of the stone within the wetlands in particular, I think might be problematic. And then I think as far as that jurisdictional ruling request, I think it would be helpful to have a narrative of the work that's been done and any work that is being proposed. And then I think that the commission want a site plan of kind of what the existing condition is, where the stone is, and what the plan is. And then the question I have for the commission is, if you do want a plan, does that need to be on a survey, or something more informal, kind of like this drawing that the soil scientist has provided, but with additional information on it, potentially acceptable?
Jamie, Commissioner Goklowski, the stone that you're talking about on the property, when was it put on the property?
I don't know the answer to that specifically. I would ask the property owner.
Was it done, recently or a long time ago?
There was a little bit brought in, mostly of that which was used in the back, or I guess it would be the eastern part next to so basically the right border in that area. So what I did was, it's very well wooded area, maintaining that. My whole intent was to make it pristine, to clean it out, clear it out. There's a lot of dead wood. There was a lot of leaning wood, things like that. So I just bought the property. I do have, the history there, and I've known the property over the years, and there was a couple other things as well. But let me answer your question: is that there was existing stone there, and I did bring in some as well.
And what was the purpose of bringing in what was the stone there for originally, and what was the purpose of bringing in the additional stone?
Yeah, the original stuff was there because that area there, as you know, just behind also my parents' house there, down Red Hill Road, the back road there, and you could connect up to there. That was all quarry land. So like directly behind the house there to the right, there's actually big piles of huge blasted quarry rock. So and then all the stone rock around, it's all quarry. There's a lot of actual ledge in the back, in the right portion, the eastern portion as well.
So that's the property kind of has got some Stony Creek quarry involved in it. Is that correct?
That's right. That's all it is, and that's all that was added to it as well, because It's not like it's concrete aggregate or brick,
Okay.
it's all clean, stone. So, and my purpose of that was to, just like anything else, it's basically in a loop. I wish I had a map I could show you. It's basically in a loop in the front, and then it comes down into in the back, and then it comes down into the front, and it kind of has like an apron area, but it stops into where they're calling potentially wetlands because of, as George said, potentially poorly drained in that right up over that line. But as you got further close, there was no activity that went further on that because I did recognize that as being more of a moist area, and I did recognize that in my history, in my records with the land and everything else, and what we've had actually experience with that is that was always a natural area of drainage. And there's piping underneath my parents' driveway, the long driveway there, the next driveway, and then across the entire front lawn of the neighbors there, right above the call out of RESA-1. So that's all piped all the way through. And we've had issues, most notably, there is a storm drain. There's no sewer drains per se as far as connected sewer system, or storm drain system there or sewers. But they put one in, the town or the state, I don't know who was responsible for it. And that was one of the things that I've been questioning, but really haven't gone to that extent of identifying its role in this because we're just trying to address what's in front of us. But there's a storm drain on the other side of the road, where that wet section is over there in the northwestern portion that George spoke about. And that's just dumping right into the property. And that's kind of, in my opinion, that's where that mound of area and sediment has built up from. So, I mean, they redirected the water onto that area, and it always intermittently.
This is Commissioner Basserman, just
would drain
so,
underneath the
pardon
driveway.
my interruption.
We've had,
Pardon my interruption.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I think Mr. Logan said that there was 8,000 square feet of stone.
Yeah.
Is
So if
that
you
the correct number that I heard?
yeah, so that's what he came up
And
with.
how much of that? Okay, and how much of that is in the area designated on your map wetlands?
That's it.
He's talking about
The 8,000 is in that wetland area.
Correct. 2 to 6 inches within, and that's an estimate. One of the things that I could possibly have done, but I didn't do it because I was more interested in figuring the wetland boundary, and that was not an easy one to do because we had to dig through a few inches of this crushed stone in areas. I could.
And was that all recently brought in?
No, I mean that stuff there was probably maybe a mixture, but again, it's not like I was excavating the site, so it's don't picture these huge machines doing crazy stuff. It was me. I did this. As far as it wasn't a whole team in there doing it, so there was a mixture of. I don't know exactly what the delineation is from what pile was where and what pile was where, but that apron there for where that line is of the delineation inwards, and it's not all the way end to end. So from the north end and the south end, it stops. There's a point to where it stops and it remains wooded. And then so in between those two marks and then out, different lengths coming off of that, and then it stops. I'd say, I don't know how much portion of that, but that's what they're referring to with the stone.
So, George Logan, for the record, what I could do, if the commission thought it would be helpful, is this is not so much of a scalable map. This is more just to show you generally where things are. I could create a scalable map at, some scale that makes sense. Nowadays, we have the ability to do that. And I could show you approximately where the edge of the stone is within the wetland. So you have sort of a visual as to where it is. Like Mr. Onofrio said, there's not much of it in the northern portion. The first couple of, we say 3 or 4 flags where you have that little jog. There's none there in the wetter portion. And then there's a little more that you see in the central portion of the wetland boundary, and then, not much further to the south. So I could delineate that out, create a scalable map, which would be part of, in a restoration possibly to bring to the commission.
This is Commissioner
Yeah,
Ormrod. Yeah,
Mr.
that,
Bassman, that might be very helpful too, because I think the commission might want to decide whether this is worth a site walk. And if that information was available before the site walk, that might be helpful.
Yeah, that shouldn't be very difficult to create.
So I think what we also discussed was, I would have some time to be getting my, basically my plan and my site plan, together and organized so I can present that and hopefully, further discuss this and anything that needs to be addressed or, that falls under exemption would be, worked together as opposed to counterproductive on it.
This is Commissioner Bassman. So if that comes together, then we probably have at least the footings for at least an understanding of what the proposal is, and hence can validate or not a jurisdictional ruling on this particular site.
So as far as when would that be, you saying? When I get
I didn't pick a time frame, but
right. I'm not sure I understood what you're saying. So you're saying that if you understand my intent, then you'll be able to determine what needs to be done before, like prior to me, getting my plan together. Is that what you're saying?
I think we need the plan before we can
Right,
assess.
agreed. That's yes. Okay. I didn't understand you for a second there. And the computer keeps going in and out a little bit. It's a little choppy.
So this is Commissioner Boda. There's a couple of different issues, I think, that are running at the same time. So one issue is, depending on what you're proposing, you may come to the commission for what's called a jurisdictional ruling, meaning that there are some things that are permitted as of right, and so you don't need a permit for, but that's not self-determining. So you would have to bring forward a specific plan for what you were going to do where, and then the commission could make a ruling, a determination of whether that is an as of right activity, and you do not need a permit, or it is not an as of right activity and you do need a permit, and so you would need to go through with the plan and go through the permit process.
Understood.
The other issue, so that's the jurisdictional ruling. The other piece of it is for what would not fall under an as of right activity. So other work on the property that's not considered as of right because maybe it's directly in the wetlands. Or if there's some other reason why it wouldn't fall into that as of right, then you still need to put in a plan for that component for a permit. So I think the first thing that we need to know is, what is your plan? I think having the additional information from Mr. Logan about where the fill is placed, and as a commission, it may be helpful for you to know we do not distinguish between types of fill. It can be natural, like our Stony Creek granite, or leaf matter. It doesn't have to be tires and that sort of thing. Fill is any material.
I understand now. I've been reading up on it, so I understand the definitions now better than I obviously before. So I understand how those things fit in.
Yeah.
I only specified that more so of like the potential for sediment or just junk filler in there, but I understand it doesn't really matter. The final line is fill is fill, right?
Right, it's stuff, right? So I think those are the two things that are running simultaneously, but really, in order for us to do anything, we would need more information about what it is that you're proposing.
And may I ask, is this an appropriate time for me to ask some questions about, I've been advising Mr. Onofrio on future, going forward with a agricultural ruling.
Say your name, say your name.
Oh, Janet Brooks, sorry, right, for the record. And I just wanted to, was following up on what staff was asking. So what level of a plan for your jurisdictional ruling are you looking for? Are you looking?
I'm not sure, this is Commissioner Bassman, I'm not sure that the commission can tell you what should be in that plan. I think that to the extent that there's clearly examples out there of plans that were submitted for jurisdictional rulings elsewhere.
That's not my question. My question is, do you want a survey, or can this be a drawing and a diagram of where approximately, where the red maples are on the property? So I guess you want that surveyed, or is a diagram sufficient? I'm just wondering what your experience with doing jurisdictional rulings, what level of.
So I think this one's a little unique for the commission because we're lucky enough to not have frequently gotten after the fact jurisdictional rulings, where we're dealing with material placed in a wetland. So that's part of the reason why I'm asking the question. And I think historically the commission has kind of gone a little bit more laid back with a less formal plan, kind of like what George Logan was talking about, which the commission may determine is still appropriate for this site. However, I think it is a little bit different. So that's part of why I want the commission to consider what it is they're looking for, especially because I don't want to come back next time and, have some of the commissioners think that they were getting a survey. And that's not what's coming forward. So
when you
what
say
we want, and then you tell us if it's insufficient. I mean,
No. I'm just saying, I'm asking the commission. I'm not trying to make the decision for them.
This is Commissioner Boda. When you say survey, are you referring specifically to an A2 survey, or are you saying, because Mr. Logan went out and did you went and did a wetland delineation, correct?
Correct.
So Jamie, would you just clarify, when you say a survey, are you meaning specifically an A2 survey, or are you meaning something else?
Yeah, I guess when I'm saying survey, I mean an A2 survey. Whereas alternatively, we could have kind of a GPS-based plan, which is, I believe, what George Logan was talking about.
Right.
Which is going to have
scalable.
I think if, and anybody please jump in and correct me if I'm not remembering this properly, but I think typically in a situation like this, if there is not disagreement on property lines and what the GPS is showing us, then, and everybody is in agreement, then we haven't required an A2 survey. It's when there is disagreement over what's where that we've needed to get clarification by doing the A2 survey, or if we were on a bigger parcel.
It's Commissioner Bassman. Commissioner Boda, when you say we wouldn't need an A2 if certain conditions, are part of those conditions that neighbors would have to agree on the property lines?
I don't, this is Commissioner Boda, I don't remember us ever bringing in neighbors. But I think it sometimes there's an agreement between what the aerials show and the GPS shows, and there's not really any reason to then go and do an additional survey on top of it. But sometimes it's not so clear, and there's some disagreement between what the aerial shows and what the town GPS shows and what the property owner has as their map. So, and at that point we need a clarification. So I don't know if we're on solid ground to continue to use that. I know that doing an A2 survey is not an inexpensive thing for an individual homeowner. But
Luckily, on the majority of the sides of the property, my parents' land is there, and they actually had a survey done not too long ago, maybe a year ago. So, and then, and I assume there's got to be one for this property too, but, yeah.
Jamie
Mr.
Frederick
D'Onofrio,
in the
are you-
Mr.
wetland.
Logan, you had
Did-
your hand up?
Can I just,
Yeah, if I may, George Logan for the record. And Jamie, maybe this is a question more for you, but the plan that you scanned and put in as part of the notice of whatever, the cease and desist, that exists at a full scale somewhere.
yeah, so I don't know that we have exactly to scale, but it's on file in the town clerk's office. That's how I got that map. So there is an existing survey with a wetland delineation, substantially similar to the one George Logan delineated based on his previous comments. So really what it boils down to is, does the commission feel that they need like the limits of the stone identified on a survey instead of on a GPS map? I don't know that that's going to get you the additional information that it would be worth going through that process. The other times where the commission sometimes will request a survey is when there's substantial amounts of fill. I think, you know, the amount of fill here, we're talking about inches, not feet. So it's not like I don't think the commission needs a topo, like a T2 type survey or anything like that. So, I don't think that it would be inappropriate to have a GPS map. I just wanted the commission to have that discussion and make a determination.
Does any, this is Commissioner Brasman, does any commissioner feel that at this point with the information that's already available, that we do not at this point require an A2 survey? Maybe after we get the information that Mr. Logan is going to prepare, as well as the plan, and then maybe a site walk, if everything lines up still, that'll be sufficient. If things go a little bit cockeyed at that point, then maybe we have to revisit the A2 survey. Is anybody uncomfortable with that approach? Okay. You had other questions, Attorney Brooks?
No, I would like to know, though, whether Mr. Onofrio can proceed to go forward, starting, getting his plans together for the agricultural determination, while also having George prepare more detailed information about placement of stones. I just want to know if 2 tracks going.
Yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
So
anything else, Jamie? You had a bunch of things in the beginning that you were want to make sure the commission approached.
well, there are photos from when I visited the site yesterday. I don't know if the commission wants to go through them tonight, or just so you know that they're available for the next time. If you think it would be helpful, we can certainly go through them. I guess the other thing, I mean, you know, assuming there's no other questions, and if there are, we can always bounce back, is when do we want to continue this matter to the point that Chairman Bassman was just saying about the 2 perhaps going kind of together? When do you think you might be able to have those plans available for review? And that's a question for the property owner and his team.
Well, for me, if I may speak first, George Logan for the record, I think my job is relatively easy. Is get a scalable plan that shows the information that you already have, plus the limit of the stone within the wetland, so we can more clearly define it and not just have an estimate, but have a better feeling of what we're talking about here. And then, of course, I could be working on the background with the team here, helping up with a plan and also coming up with, you know, if there's going to be restoration, to what extent that's going to be, and if it dovetails in with anything else that the plan would anticipate. So, yeah, I could probably get that information within about a week and a half.
So I have a question though, whether the restoration proposal might be premature until we get it really nailed down with the farming.
I
That-
think that's kind of up
that's
to the
true.
applicant. If the I think it's fair to, as staff, I think it would be fair to give the opportunity to have the commission rule on that jurisdictional ruling and then proceed from there with what steps might need to be taken.
Because then we would have some guidance if we propose something as part of the jurisdictional ruling, but the agency rules otherwise, then we could take it from there.
You don't want to start with part of a mitigation plan and realize you need to do more, or I understand the property owner doesn't want to mitigate if he doesn't have to mitigate. So I think that that's a reasonable approach. And then, anything the commission, if determines may not be JURS as of right, there would either have to be a mitigation plan and or potentially an application or some other mechanism to resolve that activity. We've continued a couple of items to November 14th. At the beginning of the meeting, the chairman discussed that November 14th meeting is really busy and November 14th doesn't provide a lot of time to come up with a plan. So our next meeting after that is December 12th.
Yeah.
Does that seem reasonable?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the team should have time to put things together.
Okay. So does the commission want to continue this show cause hearing to December 12th?
Yes.
Or, well, before we
Continue.
do, I guess, do we want to, it looks like there might be another question on the horizon. No?
Yeah, I have a question, but how far in advance would you like materials to review for the agency?
Jamie?
Generally, the commission requests a week before the meeting. If it's available sooner, we'll take it sooner.
Any other outstanding issues, questions? All right, we're going to continue CESA Correct 240902, 17182 Leeds Island Road until December 12th with material to be provided a week or prior to that meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. CESA Correct 240903, 20 Hampton Drive grading and vegetation within 100 feet of a wetland. Again, a continuation of a show cause hearing. Jamie, were you up there recently?
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So I heard from the property owner that the seeding had been completed. Basically, there was ground disturbance, removal of understory vegetation, movement of dirt, and we were looking to get the area stabilized. The area has been seeded. It has not started to germinate. I don't know that we'll see any germination this season or if we'll be in the spring. So I don't believe the property owner is present. Is there anyone on this call representing the property owner? Doesn't look like it. So since the last meeting, I have approved administratively a permit for some activities which included revegetating the site with the seed. I would probably at this point recommend, just so we can get it off the agenda for now, that the commission uphold and modify the order, basically codifying that the seeding plan approved per the permit has to be implemented and at least 85% vegetative cover established, at which point the property owner can come back and look to have the cease and correct order lifted. Alternatively, if the commission really doesn't want to take action, we can continue it, but I think by taking an action on the order, it gets it off the agenda until we're ready to deal with it again next time. And it gives the property owner clear direction of what the commission is looking for. The other thing that I'm not sure, I mean, I don't know if monitoring is really required in this particular instance. I know it was kind of touched on at the last meeting. Certainly something you can consider. I think given the way the areas that were disturbed and the way that everything drains, and the fact that he did get an application, it wouldn't be out of place to not require monitoring. But yeah.
This is Commissioner Basserman, but the bottom line is, you know, to get anywhere near what we're looking for in terms of germination, given the time frame that we are at currently, it's, I don't know if it's even 50-50 that we're going to have this anytime soon to be able to observe completion. So aren't we?
Yeah, I guess alternatively, if you want to tape, you could. You could continue the show. There's no time limit on a show cause hearing. You could continue the show cause hearing till like April or May if you wanted to, but yeah, those are my two.
I'm trying to go back and I guess understand if we say modify, that gets it off the agenda as well, correct?
Yeah, if you were to uphold and modify the permit or the cease and correct order, I would suggest modifying it to kind of tie it to the plan that's been approved for the site and establishment of vegetation, like, you know, so that we have stabilization of that area. And then at which point I would bring it back to the commission when I feel that those conditions have been met, and recommend that the commission make the order. Alternatively, if you continue it, then theoretically it would just be in the show cause hearing stage and then ideally be lifted on your next review. But it's kind of weird because you have to continue it to another time. So
we have to pick a time.
Whereas this, if you uphold the cease and correct order,
right,
it can kind of be more open-ended.
Anybody have a strong feeling one way or the other?
This is Commissioner Goklowski. I say we move it until we're not going to get any results from between now and March. I mean, I would, you know, bring it back, you know, February, March, and, you know, hopefully they'll have something done, you know.
You want me to schedule it for the April 10th meeting? At that point, hopefully we'll have gotten some germination and stabilization.
Commissioner Boda, that sounds good.
Yeah, Commissioner Goklowski, Jamie, how do you feel the homeowner's been responding to it?
Well, we were looking to get it seeded before this meeting, and that did happen. At this point, it's fairly passive. I mean, it would be basically maintaining, you know, watering as needed and reseeding as needed, to get that growth. Like I said, I don't know that he'll get. I mean, we've had some pretty crazy weather lately, but I don't know that he'll get growth this season.
Well, my roses are still blooming, so and my impatiens are still blooming too. So I mean, it's just kind of weird. But my concern is the homeowner receptive to what you are looking to get done?
I believe so.
Okay.
The one other thing I'd be looking for, which has not happened, is there's two stakes of the silt fence are stapled to trees, and I've requested that those be removed and staked into the ground. So my recommendation at this point, based on discussion, is that we continue the show cause hearing to April 10th, and I follow up letting the property owner know that, and that he's expected to maintain those seeded areas to help ensure that they germinate and establish vegetative cover, and that the silt fences repaired as previously discussed.
Sounds like a plan.
Anyone disagree? Seeing heads saying, agreeing that it seems to be a good plan. So yeah, we'll continue it to the April 10th meeting, 2025.
Okay, cease and correct 240501, 90 Red Hill Road, vegetation removal. An update on the show cause hearing?
All right, so I believe we have the property owner present. I did get an update from him. So this was carried over from last spring. Yes, this is kind of the inverse of what we just did. And we were hoping to have a planting plan and potentially plantings to review this evening. There is a little bit of issues with communication with the first professional that the property owner reached out to. So he has reached out to another professional and is looking to have a plan implemented and at this point, or designed and at this point implemented in the spring. So I do believe there's an intent to comply. I think it's just kind of circumstances that we're dealing with here. So I think the thought here again is when to continue it to. So I guess I would ask the property owner to sit. Do you have any idea as to when your professional might be able to have that planting plan available?
So when I talked to Scott, his assistant Jen, she said they're kind of busy. He was hoping to be out here within a week or two. We'd signed the contract. I've sent them their fee to get it to get the process going. And I don't think the project's extensive. It just needs to have somebody come out, review it, and then build the plan that we can implement it at when the commission's happy with the plan. So I would hope in the next month. I know things are winding down for the season, so hopefully he can get out here and get that resolved. I don't have a firm date at this point, so I would hope within the week I can have that information to you.
This is Commissioner Boda. I'm wondering if it makes sense then to bring this back in January or February, which gives it'll give Mr. Parrish time to work with the professionals that he has, and also us time to go through what we need to with what he's presenting, such that they can be ready to go when the growing season starts.
Yeah.
So maybe the January meeting. You want to maybe do January 23rd?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll continue it to January 23rd, and hopefully we'll have the plan in advance of that for the commission to review and go from there. So we're good to go in the spring.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
We have two agent approvals. Again, back to 20 Huntington Drive, 241002, clearing, grading, and replanting. I think you touched on this a little bit when we talked about 20 Huntington earlier, but anything additional, Jamie?
No.
Okay. And agent approval for 241003, South Montawees. Nothing exciting there.
It was a foundation repair. So I just reviewed that administratively. Pretty minimal ground disturbance, temporary in nature while they were doing that repair. I don't believe they plan on actually doing the work until the spring. But.
Other business in the 220705, 175 Cherry Hill, the subdivision. Request to modify the permit due to a change in the stormwater management. Jamie, you had some concerns here.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So this was a permit reviewed and approved by the commission. Trainings, state agencies, they always say it's reviewed by the agency, modifications should be reviewed by the agency. This change seemed like something the commission should be reviewing, aware of. I'm not really sure how much impact it has to wetlands and water courses, but I at least wanted the commission to be aware and make that judgment call themselves. So with that said, I will hand it over to the permit team to present the changes briefly for you.
Hey everybody, I'm sure we're all familiar with me, but for the record, my name is Zach Georgina. I'm a project engineer with Giuliano Associates, and I'm just going to go over a quick history of what we approved, where we're at right now, and what the solution is that we're proposing. Major decisions for you guys to make is, other than notifying you, is this a matter that you feel needs to be voted on by the commission, or is this a matter that can be left done administratively? I'm not going to put my opinion on that. I'm just going to give you guys the facts and you can make your decisions, and then we can go from there. So, Jamie, if I can screen share, that would be fantastic.
You should be able to.
Okay. I just always like to ask for... Okay, are we all looking at, I guess, the agenda, but this, we should all be able to see my screen in the drawings?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the application in front of us, the modification. I'm going to go back in time a little bit, and this is what we approved, which was a detention basin in the same location, the same size that I'm looking to modify to. But this basin, based on soil testing, was designed around infiltration. Essentially, it was sized to handle up to the 200-year storm without overflowing, and was designed to handle the impervious runoff from the impervious surface of the roadway, the roof runoff for 9 of the 11 lots, as well as their driveways being graded to sheet flow towards the right-of-way and be collected. This was the plan to pass all this through a series of catch basins into a hydrodynamic separator with bypass system, and then into the basin. So essentially cleaning everything with that hydrodynamic separator, removing those major trashes, silts, fines, and oils, all being trapped in there with regular maintenance to that. Lo and behold, we're in the midst of construction, and at some point, a site change was made to use this as a temporary settling basin, which is not recommended. So now we have a situation where this basin was partially constructed. If I zoom in here on our current or our existing conditions as of the survey date, which is at this point about a month old, but we're a bit of a moving target, so bear with us on that. But as you can see, these 2 blue rings here, the smaller ring represents the approved base bottom footprint of the basin, with the top being the top ring of the basin. You can see along the top of the page that contractor did a pretty good job hitting the outside profile of that. We currently have installed those hydrodynamic separators and catch basins, with the flared ends coming into the basin. The bottom and, just for the sake of ease, the bottom left of the basin you see had not been completed as of yet. They were still using the driveway as a construction entrance. So we ended up with a basin currently that's sitting there about 35% undersized, dropped a little deeper than the originally approved basin, does not currently have the overflow where the other basin had, and due to its utilization as a sediment trap is essentially operating as a swimming pool. The contractor installed a temporary outlet pipe in this basin. It's not perforated. It is a corrugated plastic pipe, vertical, so water fills to that level, and at that point bypasses out through this pipe. Evidence suggests on site that there is slight infiltration still available. When I was doing the as-built, water level had dropped below the rim of this pipe, so water's going somewhere, most likely into the ground, just not at a reliable rate. So what we're looking to do to correct this situation, obviously step 1 is finish installing the basin, pull this out to its entire size, and then due to the nature of silts and fines being directed into this basin and the observed lack of infiltration, I can no longer rely on that just from a design standpoint. So we're looking at solving that situation by installing a sand filter to mimic infiltration, pass that water through the sand filter out of the basin, And then to accommodate the basin being able to drain, we're going to proposing to include a 4-inch vertical standpipe with a series of holes bored in the side to allow for metered release of water. The whole system is designed to mimic the original 2021 conditions of the site. Previously, it was infiltrating everything. Now I have to release water at a rate. Otherwise, we have a the swimming pool fallacy of water comes in, water comes out, or the bathtub fallacy of water comes in, water comes out. So what we're just trying to do here is take a situation and follow the intent of the plans to the best of our ability, which is have a functioning basin that is treating water and not increasing downstream peak flows. So that is our current situation. At this point, I'd like to open up if there are any questions or comments from the commission.
This is Commissioner Bodo. What does this do to the total infiltration of the water quality volume?
It's a little hard to figure what's going to happen in the final the end game here. I'm recommending that the contractor obviously needs to remove the sediment and silt that's deposited. I'm recommending an over excavation of the material in hopes that we do get back to some sort of infiltration rate. In practice, we will, especially once vegetation gets here. There's not a good estimate on what the stormwater quality volume is going to be in terms of infiltration. However, from a state standpoint, water passing through the sand filter it functionally counts as being groundwater, and that's a municipal to municipal, whether town engineers accept that logic, but the state really hasn't made a firm decision how sand filters qualify as groundwater. So I held those volumes for our calculations for peak flows, but we are treating an ungodly amount of water. Everything's going through that vorticentry system, so it's getting the pre-treatment, and then we are encouraging about half the water discharge rate is going to be going through the sand filter, so it will be getting the quality treatment of passing through an earthen material.
But you still have
this Commissioner Basserman, I guess
you still have a volume discharge.
Correct, and I do believe it was I stated this on a different project we're working on as well, but there's always an increase in volume with development. The intent of this, especially with the longer delay time, is not to overburden downstream. Unfortunately, because of decisions made on site, we're now trying to do the right thing and create a basin that is going to be the most functional in the long term. And that's what we're looking at here, is engineered solutions to address the situation.
This Commissioner Basserman, I guess I have some concerns about is enough of going on here, especially with ungodly amounts of water, that we consider this a modification as opposed to this is a whole different deal.
Yeah.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. Let me hop in real quick on that. Mm-hmm. So I did suggest that the applicant submit a modification, and a large part of that is based on the relevancy of this location and wetland watercourse resources. So I'm going to screen share a GIS map, which I forgot to throw in the Dropbox. I'm going to replace the current share. And all right, I apologize in advance. It has tons and tons of contour lines on it. So, but this is the subject site that we are discussing right now, 175 Cherry Hill Road. The basin, this is that roadway, the construction entrance that is to be abandoned, and the basin is approximately in this area here. So to the east, we have 3 farm ponds. You can only see one because the other 2 are underneath the
NCRS hatching.
Yes, NRCS wetland layer. Thank you. These wetlands are uphill of the proposed basin, and I'm sure they're more than 100 feet away. There's another undocumented wetland resource within the Cherry Hill right-of-way, approximately in this area here somewhere. I don't recall specifically where. that is also not going to be impacted by the basin. So my biggest concern relative to the proposed changes is the fact that it is the overflow from the basin ties into the stormwater system, the catch basins in the new road, one of the catch basins in the new road, and then that ultimately discharges. You can see the contour lines right here, where it looks like there's perhaps water flowing out. So my concern would be the stability of that outlet and whether it's able to handle the flows that are going to be going through there, especially given that when this project started, the catch basin that outlets there was blocked and it wasn't flowing. So there's certainly going to be an increase in flows going to that outlet. Granted, this outlet is above a steep slope, but then there's also quite a bit of area before it gets to the wetland. So I feel like due diligence, it's worth expressing the concern. Is it something that I would normally require a permit for? Probably not. It probably wouldn't even be on my radar to be looking at if it wasn't part of something I'd already looked at. But it is a substantial change to the basin. So I did think it was worth the commission reviewing and seeing if you have any concerns. I just want to highlight that your concerns should relate back to the commission's jurisdiction and impacts to wetlands and water courses.
This is Commissioner Gokowski. What is the approximate increase in water volume at this stage?
When this was looked at under the 2020 and 2021, stormwater volume was not a regulated portion of that. I know that there was a Branford element that wanted to know what the impacts were, but that was not under what this was approved, the stormwater regulation from the state. I'll be honest with you, I do not have that number in front of me. I can look it up for you and get back to you on that, but I don't have that number in front of you as it wasn't.
Must be a significant increase for you to bring it back to the commission or show concern like this for a modification, pretty substantial modification.
So from my standpoint with the engineering element, why I have a concern to bring this up in general is as soon as we have a situation where I can't ensure that I'm going to be able to infiltrate appropriately, we essentially have a glass of water. So if you fill that glass of water as designed with a storm or several storms, eventually you get to a point where adding more water is going to immediately dump out. And that's not an engineeringly responsible place to be in. Unfortunately, this situation has been made and that exists now, that we have that glass of water. So what we're doing here is trying to solve that glass of water with the least impacts to the approval to begin with. Jamie is absolutely right that other than the fact that this site already had existing wetlands, if this type had already come before this commission, this type of modification would have been handled entirely with engineering and with planning and zoning. The wetlands that actually dragged us into this to begin with are, as Jamie said, up gradient from this in a separate watershed about 270 feet away. The next nearest wetlands based on the NCRS data is over 500 feet away from this discharge point. In terms of the volume or the peak flow rates, which is what was being regulated, what we have done here to maximize the outflow of this basin to assure that we have stormwater capacity volume is essentially mimicking this to match the 2021 conditions. So the flow that's going to be hitting down at the point where those catch basins that was silted is, and that's portion of the right of way, they're essentially the same numbers that were there before construction started. Slightly less in some cases, but in no excess. And the volume of water is being released into this discharge point over a much longer period of time. Presently, or when I say presently, I'm referring to the 2021 conditions right now. So under the 2021 conditions, you would be seeing your peak flow around that 12-hour mark with the storm flows subsiding around hour 28. With this, you're seeing those volumes would be ultimately passing through this this point in the 3.5 day period. So the volume is being the same volume is being held. It's just released at a much slower rate than what is presently happening there in terms of your peak flows. So increase in volume overall, correct, but the flows are going to be less than what's currently experiencing. I understand that when this the catch basin that was already in there, the public infrastructure was there for Cherry Hill, which comes to this low point and then passes across and under, was silted. It had probably been silted for years prior to our survey, but it was installed and was, receiving that water from Cherry Hill in 2021. At some point, it did become silted, and that's where we're at. It's been unsilted, and now we're directing this basin, same peak flow volumes, to what it was designed to handle, or should have been designed to handle.
This is Commissioner Vasserman. So as I understand this, even though we have substantial modifications to the size of the basin as well as the devices that we're going to use with the basin, that the flow to the wetlands is either the same or less.
So just to correct on that, what I'm proposing is the same size basin as what was approved. I'm not changing the size. It's currently undersized. Part of this proposal is to bring it to the size that was approved. The same pre-treatment elements with the Vort Sentry hydrodynamic separator. What we're adding is essentially an under drain, but a sand filter with a vertical pipe. That's what's being added to this to account for water exiting the basin. So the basin's not getting any bigger. And then, could you repeat the second part of your question, your statement? I just want to.
That the impact to the wetlands, both the volume as well as velocity, is no different than the 2021 approval?
The velocity and peak flow will be no more than the 2021 conditions. The volume over a 3-day period will be larger, but it will not be. The whole reason the state went with the flow approach with peak flows is if downstream and things are able to handle the flow, which is, a volumetric and a velocity based calculation, it should be able to handle that post development. That was why the focus was put on reducing or maintaining the peak flow pre and post development. Any development has the increased volume, but like I said, it's not going to be at a higher rate of getting there. We're going to hold the volume and release it slowly over time. Several days, in fact.
Okay. So, Jamie, why are we treating this as other business?
That's how we usually treat permit modification requests.
Gotcha.
So it certainly is a unique situation. Like I said, I probably wouldn't. It's a substantial change where on a typical wetland permit, I think it would have significant impacts. I'm not sure that it does in this particular case. There are a couple of concerns, like I said, the outlet, that I kind of want to talk with the town engineer. We did get revised materials today. I want to see the town engineer review those. So I think the question that I have for the commission tonight is, are you okay with this modification being reviewed administratively by town staff? Or do you feel that you need to review it in beyond what you're reviewing this evening?
Commissioner Goklowski, Jamie, you're going to be bringing the modification to the town engineer. He's going to be reviewing it.
Yes, the town engineer will be reviewing the modified changes.
And you feel comfortable with whatever decision he will be making?
I believe so. And like I said, I do have a couple of points. Like another one is there's a note on the plan that says dewatering shall conform with the current Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. I would probably like to see some actual dewatering information provided because I know that that's been a problem on site before. just to make sure that, you know, the team on site knows what's expected of them in regards to that, prior to that work commencing, because they are going to have to dewater the basin to obviously excavate the material out of it. And then what was another one I had? Oh, I realized that the erosion control plan doesn't have silt fence on the lower side of the basin. So I'd want to see that clarified. A couple minor things like that. That I don't think that it's at a point where I'd recommend the commission approve it this evening. But if the commission was okay with it being reviewed by staff based on the limited nexus to the wetlands, we could conceivably move forward that way, but only if that's how the commission feels it's appropriate to do.
This is Commissioner Gokowski. You're always very cautious about bringing items to the commission, and I personally don't think you would, even if we gave you the carte blanche to do an agent approval. I'm sure if you saw something that wasn't correct, you would bring it before the commission for our eyes as well. So I personally don't have a problem with you moving forward with the recommendation of the town engineer as well, looking at the plans.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I guess I could support that in the event that you have discussions with the engineer that raises some flags that you're not sure of. I guess you can bring that back to the commission for its review, but assuming no red flags from the engineer or your other comments that you have, yeah, I'm okay with agent approval, given the fact that we have some substantial distances between where the wetlands actually are and where the discharge occurs. Anybody feel differently?
Commissioner Begelman, I'm fine with it.
Commissioner Armstrong, yeah, I'm good with that.
All right.
Okay.
I will review it, and hopefully for the sake of our agendas, we'll not be bringing it back.
Well, it'll be under agent approval the next time, right?
Well, it's not agent approval because it's not a permit, it's a modification, but agent review, if you will. So yeah, I'll review it. I'll review it with the town engineer, and if there's something that I feel needs to come back, I'll bring it back.
Great. Okay, nothing in correspondence and announcements, and I guess we're at that moment where we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Gokowski, good night all.
Good night all, and a second. All right. Thank you, folks. See you on the 14th.
All right. Bye.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.